Okay, so this is now episode 4 of the Ancient Wisdom series, and today we are talking about Yoni Steaming. Um, if you don't know what that is, you're in for a real treat. I will touch on the history of the Yoni Steaming pretty briefly, but then I have invited on our guest today, Carmen, who started a Mind Your Own Womb movement, and I'm going to let her tell us all about that shortly. But for right now, I'm just going to go quickly over what a yoni steaming is and kind of its ancient roots of it. So, a yoni steam is exactly what it sounds like. It comes from the Mayan healing lineage where women sat over a pot of boiling herbs, usually draped with a cloth or kind of a blanket just to keep the steam in there. And you nothing is inserted, right? You're just sitting over this pot of steam. There's a bit of distance, and it is intended to cleanse the womb, cleanse the uterus. A lot of times it was used for people who had difficult menstrual cycles or during menopause and even after childbirth. So it has a number of benefits beyond the physical womb itself being cleansed and healed. A lot of people use it to connect to their divine essence, their divine feminine, all that. And I had my first one about 4 years ago, and at first I'm like, what is that? Is it safe? Blah blah blah. But it was the most beautiful experience. Lighter periods, less cramping. I mean, and that was just after going once. I went a couple more times after that. During COVID, it's kind of been hard to keep up with that practice just because, hasn't been safe to be as intimate with services like that. Um, but yeah, so that is the basic history of the steam. It's nothing new. You might have heard it kind of hopping around the Western kind of spiritual realm recently, but this is nothing new. It has been practiced in Africa, Asia, Central America, so I would be really happy if it was more common here, because I think it's beyond just the physical benefits of it. It's so much more than that. So without me rambling anymore, I would like to introduce Carmen.
Hi. Hello.
Hi. Okay, so Carmen started the Mind Your Own Womb movement, and I'm just going to let her take it away because it's super fascinating.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And thank you for allowing me to share this platform with you. So, my name is Carmen, and I started the Mind Your Own Womb movement. And the Mind Your Own Womb movement was created originally because I have fibroids, and I didn't really like the way that I was being treated in that space originally when I was diagnosed. And then with that, and me sharing my story with people, they in return shared their stories with me. And I was like, okay, there needs to be a space where people feel comfortable because I learned the more that people were sharing their stories, people were really helping each other. It was very beneficial to each individual. So it was like a healing process, possibly in some cases for the person sharing their story. And for the person receiving the story, it was like knowledge, information, power, right? So I was like, okay, cool. So yeah, I created the Mind Your Own Womb movement, and as soon as I even said that I was going to start doing it, it was really interesting because everybody just started like DMing me like I'm a doctor, like asking me questions, and I'm like, so I know a lot about a lot, but I don't know that. Like that's not my realm. But it was more so created for women of color. It's with an emphasis on Black women, just because like that's the space that sometimes we're not really. No one speaks up for us, and we don't speak up for ourselves in the space of not knowing, right? In the unknown territory. So that's what the Mind Your Own Womb movement is. So it's a space of like bias. You can share stories, any of your expectations if you are dealing with any recovery. So it's for the woman that has a lot of kids, and people have conversations about that. It's for the woman that can't get pregnant and her husband have been trying for years, and you're just thinking that they're cool aunties and uncles, and possibly they have been trying, they just can't. It's for the woman or the couple that don't want any children, and then people looking at them like, hey, you know, you're 40 or you're 30, and isn't about time that you give the world children. And then it's for the woman that has lost plenty of children trying to get pregnant. It's just so many different spaces under that one umbrella, because they all just feel a lot of the pressure of society. And then just them having a voice, right? And knowing like they're not alone. So that's what the Mind Your Own Womb movement is.
Thank you for sharing that. I got my mug here. I'll link her page and all that. She has merchandise.
Yes, this is a Be Mindful shirt.
Yes, love that. So yeah, that's really amazing. You know, beyond the community you're creating, the awareness, especially, you know, Black women know this, but people outside of that community don't know that healthcare isn't very safe for Black women.
It isn't.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we don't even have healthcare, right? So you have to remember that as well. And I said this last night on like my Meow Mix. I was like, sometimes it's hard for us, I think, even when we go and talk to a physician, to say, hey, I don't know, sometimes they say like rate your pain, right? It's like 1 to 10 or whatever. So it's hard to identify what is pain, because like we deal with pain on so many different levels just on a day-to-day basis, right? Depending on like where you live. So where's your community? Do you feel safe? You know, do you have high stresses due to you walking around with your Black skin? All those types of things, right? Like you already may have other issues and pains because again, like sometimes they don't have health insurance or whatever, or healthcare. So you've been dealing with maybe, I don't know, a toe injury or a back injury for years now. So now when you're asking me like my womb related issue, what's that rating to? And it's like, well, it's not as bad as my back pain. So I'm going to give it, you know what I mean? And I didn't even realize that until a physician had brought that up in a town hall meeting that they had in Virginia. And I was like, oh yeah, like didn't think about that. But you know, it's like, what are we comparing it to something, or are we only specifically focusing on this? And then, you know, that's where the advocating comes into play, because if you don't know, you don't know. So you don't know to say, no, like this is abnormal. Did you have that conversation with any of your other family, friends, anyone, and they tell you like, yeah, this does happen, or no, it doesn't. So yeah.
Right. And even if you get a physician who believes you or will listen to you, is a huge challenge. So I mean, I think this is a great space. I can see why people are looking to you as the guru, because there's not many, you know, there's not many just open spaces for people, especially Black women and women of color, to talk about their health, especially womb health. It's still, oh, you know, women period problems, or it's just cramps, or, you know, PMS. And it's like, it's so much more than that.
Correct. And it's still very new still. Like it's not new, but it's like a new conversation. Cause my journal will be 2 in June, but I had my mastectomy in 2016. And I know like the only people at the time that were sharing with me were people that maybe had like some really detrimental things happen to them. So like maybe their baby died, or they had IVF for years. And then when I told them like, oh, that's why I was out of work for 2 months, they're like, oh, I just lost twins and I've been trying to get pregnant for 8 years. You know what I mean? Like things like that. And then I had a lot of them sharing me that they have fibroids too, but like only on that scale, right? A very intimate, close, I see you all the time. We have some kind of rapport. Now it's like strangers, you know, sharing with me. And it is because I continue to share, and I'm going to always share like anything that I learn. I do want people to know, because, you know, I know everyone doesn't take that extra mile sometimes, but also it's just certain things you need to think about questioning, or you even know to question.
Sharing can save lives. I really believe that. And it's healing when you share yourself.
Sure. Mm-hmm. For sure, it is. Because you do, like, you know, most women, it doesn't matter your race, I believe, feel like we're super women. Like we can kind of do anything, especially because we juggle so much. So when you feel like there's something you were put here to do you can't do, or you're having issues with doing, or people are putting pressure on you to do it, it can make you feel a little weak. So knowing like, no, there's a village of women somewhere that share my story, understand my stories, they know my name, like they look like me. I think that that's very important. And like you said, it is impactful, it is powerful.
Yeah. Because part of going through those challenges is feel so isolating just because they're not talked about often. Miscarriage, for example, miscarriages are really common. But when a woman goes through that, it's like, oh my gosh, she must feel like totally closed off from the rest of the world and she can't connect and she can't relate. And so even just talking about it or seeing someone else, we rely on celebrities. We're always like, oh, it was so great that this celebrity shared. It really helps. And it's true. But being able to have discourse, a back and forth conversation with people in your community who have gone through similar things is another level.
Right, I agree with you because literally I think that that's when everyone started sharing with me was when like Gabrielle Union and all these other women just started coming out and saying like this happened to me. It looks like this is why I chose this route. Even like Candy from Escape, I know that she's very open about her fibroids, and that's why she had a surrogate for her last baby because she didn't want to have to keep getting fibroids removed in order to try to get pregnant. And I really was like, that's a little unfortunate, right? Like you don't feel comfortable enough until like you see like other people are talking about it. But I'm just more happy with the fact that they are now comfortable with discussing those things. Because even one of my clients lost a baby at birth. And when was it Chrissy Teigen? She posted about it. And then my client had already been discussing, talking about her son, but she was like, it was settled, right? And she was just saying like it kind of helped her breathe deeper because she didn't feel like it was a big secret and like the world now knows like this can happen to anybody. And I think the part of celebrity that helps it is like to us, they have it all. So then to know like the things that like the reproductive system is the reproductive system, you definitely can fix it some. But like what is meant to be will be. Then that brings us back to all just being human and like of one flesh, right?
Right. We kind of hold them on this pedestal, and then when we see that, dang, they can really be going through it too, it humanizes them, but it also, we're not like these helpless, lowly, isolated people. Like everyone, all walks of life, from the richest to the poorest, can be experiencing these things.
Absolutely.
So as far as the Yoni steaming, I saw your post about it, and I think that's when I actually reached out to you because I think you're only like the second or third, bigger space that I've seen openly post about it. And I was like, I gotta talk to her because I've been telling my friends and people I know, you should try it. And they're like, what is that? That sounds like weird or like painful or, So how did you first like get into hearing about the Yoni steaming and promoting it and all that?
So I've done Yoni cleanses, which are like little pearls, little balls that you just insert, and each one is different. But the ones I would do, I think it was like 3 days. So you have to keep them in for 3 days, and then you'll pull it out, and then any and everything that needs to come out, it basically helps you flush and detoxify the vagina. So that was like before I even, so like maybe like 2015, 2014, I started just diving in deep with all of my like spiritual healing and, truly awakening, right? Like really like identifying who is Carmen as an adult, right? So that was my first time. But then I was learning about like the themes and stuff. And then, like you said, it's not something that I could kind of find often. Like I wouldn't just, could search and say, Yoni themes. Like there was no one really doing it. So then I knew a lot of people that were taking them. And then when I spoke more about my fibroids, people were suggesting to me like, hey, Carmen, Yoni steams help with fibroids, endometriosis, PCOS. It's like a whole bunch of other ones, but anything that falls under that womb health issue where like, you're either dealing with some kind of severe pain and you're trying to get rid of something. I know it helps with that. And then they also told me all these other extra benefits about them as well, like if you're having issues with like dryness, helping to tone the uterus and the vaginal wall, so it can help make the vagina actually tighter. If you're having any issues with that, it can help you orgasm better. I know that, of course, it's like a spiritual thing as well, so it can help just more of a cleansing inside and out, like depending on where you are in life. And I know a lot of people that have gotten pregnant Yoni Steaming monthly. Or as you know, however they give you your regimen and you tell them like, hey, these are my issues. And then you go like twice a month, once a month, whatever they suggest and doing it. And then like them trying previous for years and it not happening. And like that being the only thing that they helped, that they did different, that actually helped. And of course, like your cycle and stuff, like it helps with that as well. So that's when I heard about it. And I'm a big believer on before you think like things can't work, try everything. As long as it's not gonna put you in harm's way, try it all. You never know. Like if it means change how you're gonna eat, change how you're gonna eat. If it means drink more water, take water away, add it to something. I don't like that's just me. I'm like, try all of it, especially if it's from the earth. Try it. Because the herbs in the yoni steams, and I think what got me really intrigued, I'm a hairstylist, like so that's my full-time career. But the same stuff that we put in here to make hair blood circulate on the scalp and make hair grow, or the same things that we digest for hair, body, just to make you better, are a lot of the same herbs that are in the steams. So once I started identifying, like, oh, lemongrass, oh, lavender, oh, it's like same things that you use for aromatherapy. It's like they're all the same things. It just so happen to have so many different benefits. So there's no way that you sitting on steam is this gonna really do you any difference. It's not gonna harm you any, right? So I kind of started pushing it, even though I wasn't getting them done myself, just because, like I said, I just believe if you don't know, I know. So here, I'm gonna give you all of this information and do with it what you will.
Right. And that's helpful because someone who follows you who've never seen that before, you could potentially have really helped with their womb health journey. So it's the benefits, and there's a lot. So we'll just run through quickly. There is, for fibroids, endometriosis, PCOS, painful cramps, heavy period flow.
Infertility, because I think it's supposed to help you be a little bit more fertile.
Infertility. And, sometimes I hesitate to say that just because I'm not a fertility specialist. I'm not a Yoni steam specialist. I'm not an herbalist. But for a lot of people, it has worked.
It works. Yeah.
So that's one of the potential benefits of it. So yeah. And then, so that's the physical, the health wise, even just detoxifying the womb, because the foods we eat, our environment is not as pure as we would like it to be, or as it used to be. And we store it, especially in the womb. A lot of toxins get stored in there, and a lot of emotions.
Yes, and I think also it said it helps with stress and anxiety. I think I've seen that a lot of times too, like when I'm looking into it, and that does make sense because a lot of the time, a lot of the womb issues are connected to stress. So I know, like even with like fibroids, they always ask you like all these questions, and they always ask you like, "Are you under a lot of stress? Are you under a lot of stress?" And I'm like, no one ever knows when they're really under stress.
Yeah, because it's subjective and relative.
Correct.
Yeah, so that is the kind of the background on the womb steam. If you're someone who is like, oh, let me check with my doctor. Doctors, like Western doctors, a lot of them, they're not trained in any type of Eastern medicine. And I've often heard them say things like, well, there's no empirical research on if this really works.
Yeah.
Well, that's because no one is studying it, empirically in the Western world standards. So yeah, if this is something you want to do your own research. Seek out a professional who does them. You can research, how to do it yourself and the kind of herbal blends, but the safest way is probably to go to an herbalist, who has been certified in Yoni Steaming, at least for your first time, just to kind of get the feel. You don't want to burn yourself,
Right, exactly.
all that stuff. So
Exactly. And to touch, like piggyback off of what you just said, one of my clients, she's a gynecologist, and she was saying like sometimes, people come in and they ask like, how do you feel about this holistic healing method of doing things? And she was like, her personal life, she's tapping in, but she's not 100% tapped in, and she doesn't have like a holistic certification or like practice. So she just always tells people, like you said, do your research, but she always tells them like, don't get upset when your doctor who just studied medicine can't give you those answers. Because literally she was like, we're here to tell you about medicine and what can be cured with everything that's medical, with the cure being medicine. Like they're supposed to push medicine, right?
Yes.
So, and I really appreciated her being that honest, because no one wants to say that, but she was like, no, like that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to push medicine if medicine is needed. Of course, if it's something simple like elevate this or ice this, then that's what they'll say. But she was like, anything like that, like you said, do your own research and then seek out those professionals that can then intel take you along your journey with your womb healing on a more holistic Eastern medicine journey.
I appreciate the Western doctors who will actually approach it that way rather than telling their patients, oh no, that doesn't work, or that could be harmful, or it's not studied. Because before Western medicine was a thing, thousands and thousands and thousands of years, this ancient medicine was healing people. And Western medicine is for emergencies. And we're grateful to have it and all that. But if you are having these chronic discomforts and illnesses, they're not trained in that. They're just not.
Exactly.
And so.
Exactly, and that's true. Because you will have, I think I had, when I first went in, I was telling my doctor, like, oh, well, I bought this fibroid Bible and I'm taking this elixir. And, how do you feel about that? And they're like, well, I don't know. There's no studies on this particularly, so I couldn't tell you how I feel about it. They're like, do you feel better? Like that's how it was originally. And after that, I was like, okay, so clearly, if it's not on the spectrum of what you think is right, this is not going to work. And, like that was just my doctor for that time. And then I definitely, left and went elsewhere.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because the doctors, like the functional medicine doctors, the integrative doctors, they will incorporate all these different healing modalities, but it's so expensive because it's not covered by insurance and it's not accessible to everybody. So yeah, same with, if you do seek out these alternative healing modalities, unfortunately, some of them are not covered by insurance. So I understand that these things are not accessible to everyone. They really aren't. It can get expensive. But if you can, maybe learn how to do some of the things yourself or find, programs in your area that offer these services, it could be worth your while.
Yes, I agree for sure. And they have books. They have tons of books.
Yeah, I mean, Google is our best friend too. Books, yeah.
Like I know people don't really like to read that often, but they have books that help you know what herbs to have, what you can possibly do, like take out of your diet, add to your diet. Just try. You never know until you try.
Right. And did you change your diet around for
Yes, I'm vegan.
Okay.
So I originally started out being alkaline vegan for like 3 years straight. That was very, very hard. I'm on a 21-day fast right now. No food, just water, juice, and tea. So this is day 9. And I just wanted to recalibrate because I am about to go back to being alkaline vegan. And I was just being regular vegan. And for anyone that doesn't know what that is, alkaline vegan has a very, very strict diet of like what you can eat and what you cannot eat. So most of it is like nothing that's a hybrid, nothing that can live all year, and nothing that is acidic. Most of the foods are strictly alkaline, and this is from like Dr. Sebi's teachings. And I know like everyone doesn't love that, but it worked for me. I really felt really good during that process. Like I didn't have any ailments. I usually have really bad allergies. So I live in Virginia, and right now is when like allergy season starts, and I would usually be having all kind of issues, but I don't really run into it. I try to take my oregano oil.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I definitely changed my lifestyle, and I definitely started working out more than two, just because I mean we should be right, but I just wanted to see like could I truly see a difference in everything, because I didn't know certain exercises too, because I do have fibroids. They help with that as well.
That's amazing. So would you say you feel overall better physically, but how about like mentally and spiritually?
Definitely different now than I was when I first started, but I know for a fact I'm doing the cleanse because like life happens and you just have to like get back on track. And what I mean by that is like, you know, 2020 happened, that was hard, right? For everyone in any sense. It doesn't matter like if you lost nothing, just the fact that like you lost some of your freedoms, like that's an adjustment to be in a free world, right? So that alone, on top of I do work with the public, so then my anxiety was getting higher. Like I sometimes I have like little panic attacks unintentionally. Like I'm like having to catch my breath. I'm like, what's going on? A lot of people I know had COVID. One of my closest friends passed this January. So life has just been happening. And I just was like, you know what? That's why I'm doing the cleanse, because I want to recalibrate like my mind, body, soul, spirit, everything. I just want everything to get back aligned. Because it kind of did make I was feeling a little foggy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm usually very clear. So, but usually, yeah, like once I went vegan, I felt like I was floating. And like I can't I try to tell people this, and like every time I explain it, they're always looking at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, I don't want to keep going in because then you're really gonna think that I'm crazy. But like, you know, like I feel really tapped in. I feel like I can actually hear my higher self. Because I used to didn't know what that was. Like I would hear people like, oh God is talking to me, or and I'm like, what do you sound like?
Right.
What does that voice sound like, right? Like someone tell me, like, is it an actual change in voice? Is it your voice? Like, what is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
But once you really are like serious, right, and you focus and you're still, like you take moments to actually be still, that was hard when I was a little younger because I was like, you only get one life, gotta
Keep it moving.
gotta keep it moving. But no, like you do have to have moments where you can sit in your space and sit in your stuff. Um, yeah, I'm definitely different because I'm a more aware too, and the fact that my shirt says be mindful, like I'm more mindful of people. Like I was always pretty mindful, but I'm way more mindful now. Like it's crazy. Like sometimes I'm like, because I'll say some people like, oh, I didn't even think of that, and I'm like, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because you know, like I wanted to. The whole point was to be my highest self, right? And you never know what she or he looks like until you tap in. And sometimes that means taking away things and adding things. But it wasn't a hard change for me. A lot of people ask me that. I was in so much pain, and I'm one of those people, if I can alter one thing to alleviate something, it's done.
Right.
One's mind isn't set up like that, but the amount of pain that I was in was very uncomfortable. So for me, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, I could imagine. Um, it's funny you say that about the veganism because I mean, people have their thoughts on it, whatever. Um, and it's not for everyone, we all have different constitutions and whatnot, but I'll go vegan randomly for a couple weeks at a time. And during that time, it's like so light and so connected. And you're like walking on water is what it feels like.
Yeah, for real. It does. And it's so funny because like my cheat days, people always laugh at me because like my cheat days are just like I had bread. You know what I mean? Like it's so everyone else is not cheating, but I'm like, but this is cheating to me. Like me eating like a white potato to me is cheating. Like not to you, and then that's okay. But
Yeah.
I just feel different. Like sometimes, and I feel tired, and I don't like that. Like, you know, I have a lot to get done in a day, so to eat something and like, you know, what people consider to be the itis, like I don't want that. I want to eat and feel energized. I want to eat and feel light. I want to eat and feel satisfied. But to feel heavy, you know, like it's just, mm-mm.
I hear you. Food is medicine.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the foods that we have now are poison. Honestly, they make us sick. They, beyond the physical, there's that gut brain link, and it can just tarnish our mental health, make us feel so disconnected. There's just so many toxins everywhere, and we can't cut out every toxin in our environment,
Right.
but food is something that we somewhat can control, especially if we're privileged enough to have access to those wholesome foods and stuff.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, and it'll mess you up too. Like if you ever travel and you eat something here and then you eat something elsewhere and you're like I really didn't eat rice, but once I ate like rice and noodles in Bali, I'm never eating rice really here again.
no,
It's not
it's
heavy. It's super light. Like it tastes so different. The noodles taste so different. Everything just tastes so different. And like even like in the Caribbean, everything just tastes different. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, what are they giving us? Like what are we eating? This can't be the sister or cousin. Like this has to be like the ugly villain because
mhm,
literally like it's so different because
mhm.
my friend, like she has issues with her digestive system. And anytime we travel, she doesn't have them the same way. Like she still has them, but it's not the same. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
it's because of the food. It has to be.
Oh, it is. Anyone who's traveled, they'll understand exactly what you're saying. Like dairy, for example. Not the biggest fan of dairy. If I eat dairy here, bloated, breaking out, just feeling sick. But in like certain places in Europe where it's not so messed with and all that, I can eat it and feel fine.
Really?
So, yeah, which is crazy.
See? That's crazy. Right. So then like what do you put it in it? Because I was telling my mom that too. I was like, I kind of started going vegan without realizing it. So I had stopped really eating like all meat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just had a thing for bacon and I would eat chicken sometimes, but I would mainly do like some seafood. And I remember telling my mom, like, you don't, the chicken doesn't taste different to you? Like, it's not different to you? And she'll be like, well, I mean, no. And I'm like, it just, I don't know, everything about chicken just started changing to me. Like the texture got weird. I don't know. I just didn't like it. And I was just like, it's getting weird to me. And some of my friends now even say that. And I'm like, it's probably because there's a big difference between like organic chicken, right? Like how it's raised and what it's fed. And then like the chicken that has all the hormones in it to make it, you know, be bigger, grow faster, et cetera, et cetera. Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah. And like, if you were having less tolerance for that, it could have just been your body's way of being like, I don't need that anymore. I
Right.
need to move on from it. But
Right.
food, the way it's handled, the way it's raised, the way it's prepared, that energy is absorbed into the food and then we eat it. So it's not just the makeup of the chicken itself, but it's like you said, how was it raised? What was it eating? How was it slaughtered? Like, how
Yeah,
was
that
it
all matters.
packaged and handled? Yeah.
That all matters because like my mom grew up on a farm. So like that does matter because I know she even talks about like how different food tastes from when she was little. Like my mom said fruit, you could smell it like before you walked in a room when she was growing up. And you know, that was my mother grew up here in the States. She grew up in
Mm-hmm.
Alabama. So for her to say that, right? And she's like, now you don't know if the fruit is gonna be ripe or not when you before
Right.
you open it, like you just don't know. And even that alone, it's like, so what's the difference? Like, when's the last time you've really seen watermelon with seeds? Yeah, I'm looking for it. They say they have them at the farmers market, so hopefully when it's really watermelon season, I can see. And I'm not like a huge fan of watermelon, but sometimes I want it. So it's like, but I don't eat it anymore. I don't eat grapes or watermelon anymore because they all are seedless. How did you
Yep.
make something that has a seed be seedless?
Yeah, our food is heavily engineered. Um, yeah, and your mom, that was one generation ago, and the food is this different now. So
Yes, my mom had
imagine.
me at 26. That is insane. That in that amount of time.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. And I think sometimes I have to say those numbers so I can understand. Like, it wasn't that long ago.
Not that long ago. Yeah.
So that is why it's important to know what you are consuming and then how to recalibrate things as Yoni Steaming, and any other thing that you want to implement into your lifestyle that can help make sure that you aren't holding on to any of the food poisons you may be adding to your body, life stresses, and all of that. You can release.
Cleanse it out. It's a really cool feeling. And yeah, even with the yoni steaming, you feel so much lighter after. It's kind of
Yeah,
similar to the way that you described the veganism.
I can imagine because the Yoni cleanses that I was like the pearls.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you would feel like when you have bliss sex on your lips.
Yeah. Yeah.
It felt like that in the inside.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just felt like cool and calming and I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, I can't but it just felt good. It felt like it was needed, right?
Yep.
And then afterwards you do feel lighter. And I know the lady that I originally started talking to about it, she was like, you have to remember too, you have a lot of soul ties with people and like especially if you've been intimate with them. And she was like, some people do use condoms, some people do not. So she was like, we should be cleansing our vagina. You
Mm-hmm.
don't want to keep all of that. All of that stays with you. And I was like,
Yeah. I mean, even if protection is used or not, that energy transference
yeah,
stays with you.
yeah.
So
And
clearing
what is on the outside of a condom?
the
Like it's not
the
lubricant.
lubricant, like
Is
the,
it lubricant?
I think so. Yeah.
But she was saying whatever that is not supposed to be. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
lubricant. Yeah, like we're not
Mm-hmm.
supposed to use. It's not good for the vagina.
Anything you
So we
wouldn't
can
put in your mouth or eat should not be put into the vagina. Yep. So yeah. And that's definitely not something you want to eat. So yeah. Yeah, energy trapped in there from an intimate partner or a trauma too,
all
right?
right.
So it all gets trapped in there.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing all that today. I really appreciate you coming on here.
No problem.
So
Thank you.
where can we find you on social media?
Okay, so on everything social media, I am Mind Your Own Womb, and my website is mindyourownwomb.com as well. And it's actually going under construction right now because I want to add some more components to it. Yes, I have mugs, hats, I have shirts. I have a few different ones. I know everyone doesn't want to wear something that says Mind Your Own Womb, so I have a mindfulness sweatshirt, and then also I have this Be Mindful shirt. And this shirt was created because, and that's why like all the rainbows are a little different. It was created because the rainbow tie-dye. It was created because I have a few clients that have miscarried or done all kinds of things, and I just feel like everyone's story is unique as though like all rainbows are. But also like if you've ever like dealt with like miscarriage or just a child loss, then I kind of created this shirt.
I love that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Very mindful of you, honestly. So sweet.
Yeah. Like I'm trying. I'm trying to do
No, you're not trying. You're doing it. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Is the pillow still on there? Because I want to
Yes.
buy that. I want to get the sweatshirt.
I'm
It's
gonna
awesome. You need to check it out.
Look, I'm gonna DM you when we're finished. I'm gonna send you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So thank you so much. I'm going to link all of her info in the description box. So go check her page, give her a follow, buy something for yourself or a friend. I think the stuff will make really awesome gifts.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
thank you again.
Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
All righty.
Bye bye.